Hello. I thought I'd talk a bit more about psychology and Buddhism today um, because it looks to me like those are the videos that have had the most viewing. Um, I'm not giving you the Buddhist perspective on psychology. I don't think psychology was around in the Buddha's time. But really, the Buddha was an excellent psychologist. That's the first thing to say. So, the title of this talk, I thought, would be What's the difference between psychology and Buddhism? You know, it sounds like one of those jokes, doesn't it? Well, perhaps it is. So, psychology tells us what we are, and Buddhism tells us what we really are. I would say that's the big difference. So, they both have very, very, very good, helpful uses in our lives. And when I'm talking about psychology today, I'm talking really about therapeutic, therapeutic schools. So when I came across Freud, when I first started studying psychology, I don't think he's so popular nowadays, really, but I was very stricken with, just a lot of it made complete sense to me. But what made less sense to me was that the people that he studied were in therapy with him for a lifetime, you know, for like 20 years and so on. It wasn't seen as something that really had an end. And um, a lot of his method was, well, obviously interpreting dreams. You'd have to know somebody very well to do that, but also delving into their past, you know, how they had arrived with the personality that they have now. And Buddhism, in a way, does something similar in that it encourages us to look at our conditioning. What are the conditions that have led to us having the habits and the behaviors that we have now? Um, Psychology does help us look at our existential fears, angst, mortality. At its best, I think psychology does cover all that. Although often psychology looks at ways to make samsara work for us. So often it doesn't necessarily have a spiritual dimension. And I think that is a great lack if it doesn't have a spiritual dimension. Because, today, I think for many people, we have lost that dimension in our lives. As Christianity has waned, we haven't necessarily had anything to put in its place. And one of the reasons that people are drawn to Buddhism is because it's not stuff full of beliefs. It's very much a practical religion, one where you can explore for yourself what the Buddha had to say. So the great focus of Buddhism is looking at now and what we can do about now. You know, if we want to know how we're going to be in the future, how our lives will progress, we look at what our habits and what our behaviours are now. So both psychology and Buddhism do look deeply at our lives, at the conditioning, our habits, our behaviours. But Buddhism unpicks the real causes of suffering. And in that way, I think it goes beyond the individual. So psychology is usually associated with looking, psychotherapy anyway, therapies are looking at the individual. And I think it can lose sight of what's common to us all. So that's the great thing, you know, when the Buddha says that greed, hatred, and spiritual ignorance are at the centre of what of how we are. It's saying something very profound about being a human being, about what it means to be a human being. And it goes beyond. And this is the great thing that psychology on the whole doesn't do. It doesn't go beyond this life. It doesn't go beyond it doesn't go beyond the brain. And in Buddhism, we distinguish between consciousness that goes on in our cognitive functioning and our emotional functioning. So, you know, all our memories, all our problem solving, all the ways that our brain works, and the emotional states that we get caught up in. And Buddhism goes a step beyond that to see that those emotions can change, can be changed through working on our mind, and it goes beyond the brain function to show us that there is an awareness, a consciousness beyond, way beyond what we think of as being ourself. And that is something that's more universal. So awareness is universal, and awareness is not, according to Buddhism, does not stop at death. Yes, the brain function stops at death, but awareness is beyond that, is bigger than that. And you could say that it's when we discover real compassion and wisdom. You could say that's what spacious awareness is. It's an ultimate compassion and wisdom. So what does that mean? It means to me what is beyond all our usual states of mind. And of course they're not all negative, but they do all have this flavour of grasping, of fear, of wanting to be something perhaps that we're not, of wanting to be liked and approved of. So all these ways are ways in which we operate in the world when we feel ourselves as being separate from other people. So the fact of our interconnectedness is something that psychology, it addresses in some ways, in that, you know, there are we can understand the course of our development. You know, we can have a developmental look at how human beings are in general. But human beings are also very unique in that they don't match up often to what psychology says they should be. You know, 10 people can have the same experience and all experience it differently internally. So we're both unique and yet beyond our limited self, beyond our brain functioning. We have this interconnectedness with everything, with all life, with the whole universe. And that's very, you know, I think every religion kind of addresses that in some way. Maybe it says something like, you know, all things are one. Well, we don't quite go there in Buddhism. It's much more complex than that. But actually, we can get to know an awareness within ourselves that is beyond the limits of our cognitive thinking and our usual ways of being. So this has kind of scratched the surface and opened up a whole can of, well, if not worms, stars perhaps. So anyway, that's enough for today. See you tomorrow.